everyone. I am so super excited. I have an amazing guest for us this morning, Dr. Isabel Emmy Berkeley. Now I'm going to invite her. So she is a children's author, amongst many other things. I met her on Facebook. I'm inviting her now. So I met her on Facebook, and we have this amazing soul connection. I've made it pretty clear that my mission is to empower our children. My mission is to teach them about the power within their mind and to teach them in a way that is understandable on their level. And so I began this search for different children's books, and I really had a hard time finding them. I know that Abraham Hicks has the Sarah series, which is quite lovely. Wayne Dyer has a set of books. But outside of those two, I had a really hard time finding books. Well, here comes Dr. Berkeley, and she's an author. And we started messaging back and forth. I asked her to send me a link for her books. There's a couple of them. And she's going to tell us about those books. And we're going to discuss why she decided to write the books. She's going to tell you about her mission. And I think it's really going to be very lovely. Here we go. Approve. Yay. So excited. I'm a little nervous still, so bear with me. Okay, it says she's being added in. Slowly but surely. Hello.
It just told me I had to get back because otherwise I just look too old.
Oh, stop it. Well, that's okay. You do whatever is comfortable for you. So that was pretty seamless. I was sharing with everyone. I've done several Facebook interviews, and it's always kind of like a crapshoot. Like, is it going to be seamless? Is it going to take a little while? But that was pretty smooth.
Good.
Okay, so I want to introduce you. Kind of tell everyone again how we found each other, and then I really want this to be about you, for you. I want you to share your mission, and I really want people to know about these books because I am so lit up about them. Just absolutely amazing. And our journey to each other is quite lovely as well. So everyone, I am honored to have with me Dr. Isabel Emmy Berkeley. We met each other on Facebook. And I didn't even know she was an author at first. I knew what I was looking for. I didn't even tell her what I was looking for. We started a chat in Facebook Messenger and really connected. We're both mothers. We connected on that level. And then somehow through this like fluid, beautiful conversation, she told me she was an author. And I was like, I'm looking for children's books about law of attraction, empowering children, the power of the mind, and ding, 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 ding. She had just what I was looking for because I was really struggling to find resources to make this whole kind of quantum physics field understandable to children. So here comes Dr. Berkeley. And I asked her to if I could purchase her books. I have a link in the comments. I know you will be interested after this interview because it's absolutely an amazing, beautiful, full-bodied story that is just going to captivate not only your children, but you. So I want to start out by tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got you're very multidimensional. I love all of the things that you've got going. I really want people to know about you because you are really on a mission to empower our kids.
My passion is creativity. And we all have it, and we've kind of been told that we don't. And where does it start? That it starts in children. And children have it in abundance, creative insight, intuition, excitement, passion, and then they are blocked and stopped. And then the adults grow up and think, oh, I'm not creative, I can just follow and consume. So apart from anything else, my passion has always been with children because they're bubbling full of energy and excitement. But also it just makes complete sense if you want people in the world to know who they are, to know they are creative beings who can generate exciting new ways of being. You start at the bottom. You start at the first letter of the alphabet, the child. And the trouble is that we all go to these wonderful personal development seminars and learn how to undo all the terrible knots and struggles we got put into. But hello, we could just actually start with our children and work from there and just allow them to know, to remember, and to retain the knowledge of who they are. So everything I do is basically rooted around that.
That's perfect. That's amazing. And that's like my new mission. When I discovered Abraham Hicks a couple years ago, she's who really lit me up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much power. I didn't know I had this much power. And then how do you share it with your kids? And my 13-year-old was homeschooling at the time. So we were together all the time. And she just she's my little mini me. So she really, your kids will follow the path that you lay out for them. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start planting seeds. And so that's what I did. And the way I started planting seeds is I started changing my vocabulary toward them. I didn't talk about how I didn't have money anymore. I didn't go into these negative thought patterns. So I just wanted them to model my behavior, right? And so I'm so excited to be able to give them these tools, but now I'm so excited to be able to find a book, a series that gives them a magical way in which to learn about the power within.
Yeah. What we do as a world, we stuff our children because we believe somehow in this crazy upside down world that we live in, that they are empty and need information. And so we stuff all this knowledge into them, our mores, all of our ideas, the schools based on stuffing information. You're supposed to regurgitate it in exams, and that's supposed to equip you for adulthood, for life. And of course, we know from beautiful Esther Abraham Hicks, it's reminded us of who we are, that we generate our entire universe ourselves. So if we take a child and we say, oh, wow, who are you? What have you got in yourself? And then use that as an example in a book, because I was coming across children's books. Probably the only author I can absolutely recommend is the Secret Garden author, Frances Hodgson of Burnett, because she knew all this stuff. You go read her Little Princess, you go read The Secret Garden, you go read The Lost Prince, her books, she knew about the law of attraction. It was really, really beautiful to see. But I wasn't finding books, and I was working with kids every day. And there wasn't the material. I teach acting and singing. Again, it's about personal awareness, my strength, my power, my expression, my ability to be seen and heard. And the books were just the natural, my God, I know all of this stuff about environmental awareness because I'm a trained landscape architect. That's 5 years at university in the States as well. I studied for a while. So I've always been incredibly in contact with the earth, and we've had all this sort of wrong programming in that respect as well. The whole sustainability agenda, I was writing about it before anyone knew what the word meant. And now I can see the whole wool being pulled over our eyes with that too. This global warming farce. Yes, the global climate's changing, but it's not to do with, mostly not to do with us, a little bit aggravated with us. But we've had lies and lies and lies and lies woven around us. And what we need is to understand who we are inside, to understand the natural systems of the planet, and to work together in harmony, in complete creative joy together. So the Milo Teal books are not only about how a human being can be and develop and go beyond limitation, as far as I found a way to express it, they're also about how we can commune with nature in a completely different way. And that was really exciting for me to find a vehicle, to create this vehicle that had both. And of course, I came across a lot of other things, such as the disclosure movement. I did enormous amounts of research into that and have just brought sort of elements, because what I'm dealing with in the books is a future version of Earth and our now, and the way the two kind of influence each other. They're both really positive, because I don't want to talk about negative things too much. They get mentioned. But yeah, that's the aim, because I want the children to have hope, to know who they are, and to be the builders of our future, because that's what they are. And so we as well equip them with as much as possible, and most of it is about, yes, listen to someone else, and then weigh it up inside you and feel. So emotional intelligence is essential, and that's what I wanted to bring through the books. Sort of human, who are we, how do we work, our emotional intelligence, and then how do we fit into pure nature and the magical, extraordinary dynamic energies of that.
So we know that there's a lot of darkness surrounding our children right now. And so for me, everyone has their role, everyone has their mission and their sense of responsibility around this. And so for me, when I was trying to figure out what is my role in this, because it's very important to me, you mentioned keeping it light. It's very important to me to keep it light, because I know that I am a light worker, and that's part of my mission, that I've got to stay up here. There are other people that are on the front lines doing that, which is greatly appreciated, because we all have our role. And so we know that when you can educate, empower, enlighten one person, there's a ripple effect. So we're working with the ripple effect. And we know that when we shift one consciousness, it has an effect over the mass consciousness. So I feel like that you so interweave so nicely into my mission with what I am doing here. And what I love about the book, I just want to tell you guys, I had a really busy morning this morning. And I started diving into Milo and Teal a couple of days ago. And when I came home, I needed a space. I needed to get into my bubble and decompress, because I was moving too fast this morning. And this book, it makes me kind of tearful, and I'm not real sure why, but it is. I cannot encourage you enough to buy this book and share it with your kids, because it is such a beautiful representation of the power within us, the peace within us. It really helps you to tap into that. And it is you paint such a beautiful picture. It is just so multidimensional. It's like you step into a different world, not a different world. It's like you're reminded of the way the world really is, and the way that the world can be for you. And you do it in a way that relates to kids. And I've been reading it to my son, who's 6. And so what I want from you is tell us what age? I feel like James is into it, and he's 6.
There are some kids who are really, alert and really awake. And of course, if an adult reads with a child, the child has the entrainment field of the adult to help decipher. Because it's like, for example, okay, I will teach a 12-year-old Shakespeare if I believe it's going to be useful for them. So I do. So sometimes we work with Shakespeare. Now, Shakespearean language is 500 years old, pretty darn complicated. A lot of it's double meanings throughout, weird vocabulary. But if I read it to them in a way that I understand it completely, they can feel it, because that's what we call entrainment. They can feel it. Then we'll go through each phrase intellectually and discuss it. But because they've got my reference point as someone who knows, they can actually understand. And the way the book's written, the Milo and Teal books are written, is I always ensure that I'm in a space of inner connection, complete connection with my inner being, as much as I can be. And the way I write is what I call just, Abraham Hicks talked about receptivity all the time. So it's a receiving state from my inner being and all the guys who work with me. It's a whole palaver of people, boom, writing.
Yeah, and you can feel it.
Yeah, and so it's got to have that charge, because most people are not going to feel it, but some people who are open and exciting and looking for that are going to find it. And so if your 6-year-old son is sitting with you and he can feel it and you can understand it, the two are going to come together, so he will still resonate. Officially, I've written the books from age, I think I put sort of age 8 to sort of 14. But yeah, as I said, if you're younger, you're going to feel it. It's rather like, I don't know if you ever come across the Anastasia books. Did you see those? They were not written by her, they were dictated to her male friend, Vladimir Megre. They were written in Russian. And she said, look, you've got to write it exactly as I say it, because she was conducting a vibration, so that the words meant more than just the words. They were encompassing an information field. And so when you read those books, even when they've been translated into different languages, I've read them in English and German, you can still feel the energy in the words, because, words are just putting energy into little packages, little quanta. So there isn't really any age group, and any good children's book should be really entertaining and interesting to an adult. That's how I go about it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I recommend it for any adult for sure. I mean, it really just puts you in such a good space. And, it's hard to find adult literature that isn't full of conflict. And I was talking to, I was talking to my 15-year-old about it, and she's like into this dystopian stuff. And I know, and I'm like, and that's what she likes. And I'm like, Sophia, help me find a book that doesn't have a conflict. And she laughs at me. She's like, it's not out there. I was like, it's out there. I know it is. I want a feel-good, happy book that's going to help me tap in to the power that I know I have. I want something that's going to reinforce what I know and what I love and what lights me up.
This is exactly it. I would go through endless children's books, because teaching acting to children, I'm looking for scripts all the time. It's my homework. I have to watch children's movies. many children's movies I have to watch, and I must read children's books. And so, I'd scour libraries and recommendations and all kinds of books, trying to find. And of course, most of them are set up on this duality system of good, bad, mean, nice. This whole sort of very basic contrast. Of course, we need contrast. I'm not saying we don't need contrast, but this sort of good, bad competition, dramatic catastrophe, etc. And I knew that's not what I wanted to perpetuate, because I know that, we were talking, you and I, recently about that Disney series, Jessie, sold as a lovely series for 0 age plus. Any child in the universe is supposed to be able to watch that with no harmful effects whatsoever. But my God, if you actually look at what they're doing, it's terrifying, actually. It's terrible, really dreadful conflict. And using children tokenistically. There was a wonderful man I studied for my PhD called Roger Hart, and he works in New York. And he created this ladder of participation for children, and talked about how children are mostly used as a token, to a mouthpiece, like Greta Thunberg. She's the prime example, completely manipulated behind the scenes to deliver a message. And because she's a child, we take notice of her, but it's not her. She's just been used, completely abused. So this tokenist thing is taken through into every single children's movie you see these days. Language, vocabulary is being put in their mouths that is not who they are. It's not what they would naturally say. And children are watching it, and they're learning from it. But they're learning something that is really distorted and toxic. And so there are children who come to me with, they've just read a really scary book. And I'm not going to judge them for it. I just say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Show me, tell me about it. And we look and try and find some goodness, try and find the good information, even in scare. And there are so many scary books written for children.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's been one of my aims, to always try and find something, and I couldn't find enough. So I thought, come on, just start writing.
Well, it isn't so much of it to awareness. It's when you, as a parent, when your eyes are open, you see the world, you see the media in a whole different light. And so what I have found is, I know I can't put my kids in a bubble. I can't put them in a box. And frankly, it's a single parent household. They go back and forth between mom and dad. And with no judgment, dad is not awake. Okay? So the kids will consume, he usually has the news on over there. The kids will consume whatever, all the time, anytime. And at some point you've got to relinquish. Like I can't dwell on that. The only thing I can do is empower my kids. And so what I'm finding is, and I don't sit them down and say, this is this, and this is this, and this, and this is this. It's a way of life. My kids' eyes are open, and they're open at a young age. And so when they're consuming this stuff, we know there's some subconscious BS going on, right? But when they're consuming this stuff, they are aware. And there is something very empowering about being aware. And kids will naturally take on the power to sift and sort.
Yeah. And
so that's what I'm finding
too, because you are consciously aware and you are emotionally intelligent, you can talk about something they've seen or heard, and you can help by giving them a label. You say, oh yeah, that was really interesting, jealousy, wasn't it, between those two characters? Because we're not taught, we never taught, as I was a child growing up, so I had to just turn my computer on or I'm going to get a really shaded face. Hang on. It just decided to switch itself off. There we go. It's a bit brighter now. As I was a child growing up, no emotions were labelled. Nothing. It was just totally stupid emotionally. And, I feel all this stuff, but I didn't know what it was. But here you are, as a woman who's very clear and knows, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit resentful now, or I'm when I stop this, I'm going to go into a rage, or you understand where you're heading and what your emotions are, so you can see and you can even feel empathically through what your children are bringing back from their other family.
Oh yes,
so you can feel it, and you can weave in conversation to discuss what you can feel, and you can give it labels, which of course is complete empowerment for those children, because they would have felt a bit sort of off. It's off. I don't know what it is. It just feels kind of weird. And if you're there as an adult, you're not judging. You're just observing, and you're just saying, "Oh yeah, that's for this. It's just like kind of looking through the garden and giving the Latin names for the plants. And that's a real gift for the children, because then it means that every single emotional experience they have is accessible. Nothing has to be locked away. Everything is out on the table, and they can choose. That's what I think your work is so valuable, because I wanted to do what you're doing now 20 years ago with my kids, and I couldn't. I lost it. I lost that. It turned into a battle because, the field that I was moving through was too dense. And it's so thrilling to see now what I so longed to do then. Here you are, and you're doing it, It's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels really good. It feels, I know our stories growing up were very different than the story that I am telling my kids now, and what a great legacy to be able to shift that for your kids, because as we grow up, these things become so ingrained within us, these patterns, these stories, this coding within our DNA. And it's tough work to get through that. And I still, it's something I'll be working through probably for the rest of my life. but it does feel really good to be able to, as I am shifting, help them remember and retain that knowledge, not to get so far away from source that you've got to, and you're pinched off that you've got to work so hard to open that back up.
Yeah. It's like you probably come across this as from your nursing side, that so many people don't recognize that they're just thirsty. They don't recognize that the most basic human need, water, people at the age of 8 don't recognize they're thirsty. Now that's quite shocking to me, because that just shows that water, as such a basic principle, kind of indicates how far our society has pulled our children away from their inner knowledge. And it is amazing to see that. But we have this is the choice that all parents have got now. It's to say, wow, okay, I was pumped full of information from my surroundings. But here's my child, and my child has a different opinion to me. This is interesting. Traditionally, we would just squash them, put them down, silence them, whatever.
Right.
Degrade them in some way. And now we're saying, oh, that's really interesting. And we are actually starting to understand that we can recognize the wisdom in each of these very small people. Some of them, they're not even talking, and they have a different opinion. And it's very exciting, because parents, having been a little bit more, well, the ones who've gone through the opening process, peeling off the layers, are starting to realize, oh my God, wow, the whole universe is in this person, very small package. And they're saying something to me, and I don't know what it is. I better listen. And so listening becomes the key to empowering those children. And the more they're listened to, seen and heard, rather than the shrieking child at the supermarket till wanting sugar. I don't mean that kind of seen and heard and listened. I mean a small person volunteering some information, and we've just been trained to ignore it. And now we're starting to realize, oh my gosh, wow, there's some information in here for me as well. I'm going to listen. And that's how you keep supporting that growth. I mean, watching you with your beautiful 13-year-old daughter, the wisdom coming through her and her inner security, I mean, that's really clear to see. I felt that she had this ease at expressing herself, also because she was standing next to her mum, who had found the ease. You see, you can't have one without the other. You can't. Yeah. You have to have, the parent has to know and feel and access and reach all the time, so that the child is allowed to. That's how it works. It's got to be a two-way thing.
Yeah. And, for those watching who are in a different space, who have maybe just stepped into this journey or just now becoming aware of these things, Sophia wasn't always like that. Sophia was really, she used to be, at her core, she's always been very wise. Thank you. At her core, she's always been very wise, and she's always had this light inside of her that all of us have, but she was not as aware of it as she is now. She was in a space of victimhood with me, which she talks about in the interview yesterday, and know that all of our children are geniuses. They all have a different set of gifts, and as you foster those and lift your child up and empower them, they will bloom like a flower. And I am here to support you. Dr. Berkeley is here to support you. And we're super happy to have you here in this group. Is there any other key concepts that you would like to touch on before we wrap up? I mean, this has been amazing. I'm super excited. I know what I'm doing Thursday evening. I'm pulling out my Milo Teal books, and I'm going to dive into them with my kids some more, because it's so freaking exciting and fun.
Oh, that is such a lovely thing to hear. I'm so glad. I'm writing the book 3 at the moment, and what's really, really crystallized in my mind since this year of 2020, and hearing about, this possible line of enforced vaccinations, and therefore children having to attend school, and, the combination of restriction involved with that. So I was really analyzing again what what does school mean to children, and what kind of educational systems, and how in what way can I somehow influence this? Because I've studied, I sort of, just like you, scanning the globe for literature for your children, I did the same with schools. I was trying to find schools that I found had recognized the true beauty and quality of who we are, who children are. And so I found literally a handful of schools. There are a handful of schools, but it was a handful of schools. And so very, very, very excited about educational systems. So another of the things that Milo and Teal do is they talk about, just here and there, they talk about their school. And they don't really have they do have a school. It's a very different kind of school. It's based on all these tenets of free choice and inner learning, where the environment and the internal come and meet, as there's a bridge between it. It's not stuffed in. The environment has a rich, rich, rich variety of ways they can access experience and learning. And that is because of who they are inside, what they choose to do. So I try and find little examples throughout the books, but the book 3 that I'm still working on, I've decided to make it a little bit more obvious, and I'm actually going to have like a handbook, a teacher's handbook in the back of it.
Nice.
Because it turns out that one of the main characters, who I decided just to use my name for her because it related to some childhood experiences I'd had and what I was doing, so I just thought, darn it, I'll plunk her in. So she's called Isabel too, and she becomes this teacher. And in book 3, she's starting to be a teacher of teachers. So spreading information of how they learn on Zog, which empowers children to really truly be who they are and to unfold to their innate qualities. And so I'm literally, that's what I've been doing this year, is plotting out alternative education. And so, yes, some of it's based on homeschooling, some of it's based on schooling, but that's what I'm looking to do through these books, is inspire not only children and families, but also a different way of approaching education. I really want a different way of approaching education.
And there are so many people looking for that, so many. Well, this is amazing. We will do this again.
Oh, it would be lovely.
Let's absolutely do this again. I so appreciate your time. Everyone, I will post a link to the books, and actually there's already a link to the books posted in the comments. Highly, highly recommended. I give it 11 out of 10 stars.
Oh my goodness. And I like number 11. I love number 11.
So beautiful. So Dr. Isabel Emmy Berkeley, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sending all of you massive, massive love today. If you're watching the replay, please put that in the comments. If you have questions or want to just throw a comment about how this interview made you feel, what you're thinking, what we can do for you, throw it in the comments, and we are here to serve. So, Isabel, have an amazing day, and I will be in touch.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Bye, everyone.